This is Straight Talk with Atlanta native Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and his sidekick Shanan Jones. Frank discussions of issues affecting the ATL, Fulton County, the state of Georgia, the nation, and around the world. And now, here they are, live and in living color, the team of Jones and Fann, the Preacher Man.
Well, welcome to another edition of Straight Talk with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Shanan E. Jones. You kind of quiet, what you do, young man.
It's cold. It's cold. Yeah, it's cold. Quiet when it's cold. You now
cold.
When it's
cold.
hot, I got a lot to say right now.
He cold, y'all. He be cold.
You see the background? You see the yard out here in the middle of nowhere.
He be cold, y'all. He be cold. But listen, we got a great program coming up in just a few minutes, though, Shannon. You know, with Aaron Johnson.
Man, let me tell you something. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, just tell them, just sit back and get ready for 30 great minutes.
Yeah.
30 great minutes with Aaron.
That moves by fast, so it ain't gonna feel like you.
Ooh, no.
You about to learn a lot.
Very,
someone that knows what they're talking about.
Know what they're talking about. Yeah. Well, listen, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna now go to Black History Facts about John Wesley Dobbs from yours truly, the man who is very informative on Black history, Mr. James Brooms. And then we'll have Black history.
They forgot all about it.
Oh man, they forgot all. We know. Wait up, and then we'll have a blast with Mrs. C. And Miss C talking about, Greg, they waiting on you. I got a call. They got your diploma ready after 50 years. And I ain't gonna say how they called her. They didn't call her to tell about my diploma. They called her to tell about her diploma, and she asked them, did they have mine too? We'll be back with more and more on the other side with the interview with none other than Aaron Johnson right after Black History Fact and 3-minute news blast with Miss C. Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, right here on Straight Talk with Black History Facts with Brother James Broom.
This is African-American civic and political leader John Wesley Dobbs, the man who was often referred to as the mayor of Auburn Avenue. Born in Atlanta on March 26, 1882, John Wesley Dobbs attended segregated schools throughout the city and became a voracious reader, ending up studying at Morehouse College. He attended Morehouse for only 2 years, however, never graduating due to him having to care for his mother. In 1903, John Wesley Dobbs passed his civil service exam and became a railway mail clerk, a position he held for 32 years. In 1906, Dobbs married Irene Thompson, and together they had 6 daughters. Irene Dobbs, the eldest daughter, would go on to graduate Spelman College in 1925 as valedictorian and would also become the mother of the first African-American mayor of Atlanta, Maynard Jackson, Jr. Willie Dobbs, also a Spelman grad, would later receive her master's degree from Atlanta University in 1934. Millicent Dobbs, another Spelman grad, received her master's degree in speech and drama from Columbia University in 1938. Josephine Dobbs, the fourth born, graduated Spelman in 1937 and also received her master's degree at Columbia University. The fifth born, Matawilda Dobbs, was an internationally known operatic soprano who in 1946 graduated Spelman College and earned her master's degree in 1948. June Dobbs, the youngest daughter, graduated Spelman in 1948, received her master's degree in 1950, and taught at Fisk University. In 1911, John Wesley Dobbs became a Prince Hall Mason, where, in 1932, he was elected Grand Master. In 1946, John Wesley Dobbs, along with A.T. Walden, co-founded the Atlanta Negro Voters League, resulting in over 20,000 African Americans being registered to vote in Atlanta. Now, with the power of the black vote behind him, John Wesley Dobbs convinced then-Mayor William B. Hartsfield to integrate Atlanta's police force in 1948, with 8 African-American officers being hired, and in 1949 having the mayor install gas streetlights along Auburn Avenue, the heart of the black retail district. John Wesley Dobbs died August 30th, 1961, the very same week that the Atlanta city schools were desegregated. That's John Wesley Dobbs. They forget all about him, but we won't.
It's been Black History Facts with Brother James Broom right here on Straight Talk. Join us each and every Friday from 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. with yours truly, Greg Fann, the Preacher Man, and Shanan E. Jones. And do share these Black History Facts with your family and friend, and do tune in to Straight Talk. Won't you? It ain't nothing but Straight Talk. This is our new featured segment here on Straight Talk with 3-Minute Blast with Mrs. C. Tips for you. Go nowhere. It's Straight Talk with Miss C.
Thank you, Greg and Shanan. This is Miss C. I'll be here each week with the 3-minute news blast. And it's news I hope you can use, okay? Before we begin, I want to send condolences to the family of Jovita Moore. Jovita was a longtime news reporter with Channel 2. She passed away on the 29th of this month, and we were so sorry to hear of her passing. She had a rare form of brain cancer called glioblastoma, and she passed away October the 29th. And I want to send condolences to her family, her friends, and to the family of Channel 2. And I pray that God will spread his love all around you and help you to make it through what I'm sure is a very sad time. Okay, before we begin, Greg, they just called me from the school and they said you can pick up your diploma now. It's been 50-something years, but they got it ready for you. Anyway, my first tip of information is there is a list of 100 of the most unhealthiest foods that you can eat. And I got it from a website called eatthis.com. That's eatthis.com. Now, let me tell you, one of the first things that's bad for you, and I like it too, is coffee creamer. Now, I got to read it because I'm old. I'm old like Greg. Okay, coffee creamer has soybean and it has I can't read my own hand. Got soybean and canola oil in it. Okay, and fruit juices. Fruit juices sometimes can contain high fructose corn syrup. Now that's not to say that all do, but just read the label, okay? And then you have your bleached white flour. Of course, it has bleaching agents in it. And then your deep fried foods. Your deep fried foods, try grilling them, okay? And it'll help to cut down on the inflammation. You may want to ask your doctor about that. Now, I'm not a doctor. I just got this from the website, okay? And bacon and sausage, my favorite. The bacon and sausage sometimes have nitrates in it. And also you have to cook them on high heat. And they say when you cook things on high heat, you run the chance of burning them and you have a little char in there. So, and there are alternatives. Like I eat apple chicken sausage with sage in it. And it tastes just like regular sausage. So anyway, you can go to eatthis.com and get more information on what I just told you about. Okay, now, the next thing I want to tell you about comes from the Better Business Bureau. That's bbb.org. They want you to be aware of scams. There are scams for everything. I couldn't believe it. Traveling scams, romance scams. You can't even be in love without being scammed, or thinking about it. That's not to say that your fiance is a scammer, but you just got to be on alert when you go to these romance websites. And they have scams for home improvement. I mean, I just couldn't hardly believe it. And you got to check out everything these days. You just can't take it at face value. Check it out first, okay? That's bbb.org. That's going to do it. 3-minute news blast with Miss C. Bye, Greg. Go get your diploma now. Hey, Shannon.
Well, welcome again to another great edition of Straight Talk. I told you I was going to have someone on today. Shanan and I were going to have someone on today that was going to be a very exciting guest, and somebody's going to share some very important information with us. My good friend and our brother, and I'm not a part of any fraternity. He may be, but we're glad to have Aaron Johnson here with us. He's a member of the Board of Elections for Fulton County. He does a lot of things, and we're here today to talk about what's going on in election, and in particular, Aaron, talking about the issue of the reappropriation. And the lines and the points of lines. We've been talking about the gerrymandering and everything on our previous program, and of course, with you being in elections, and you're going to see that on the other end at some point, or you've seen it because you've been involved in politics a long time. So, well, let me just hush. Shannon, do you want to say something before Aaron says something?
I want to hear Aaron.
Do you want to hear Aaron? All right, not Aaron, the brother of Moses, but Aaron Johnson, our friend. How you doing, Aaron?
Now, I could have a cousin named Moses, but
You mean Bishop Aaron Lackey?
I did. I had a neighbor named Moses, but thank you for having me, Bishop Fann and Reverend Jones. We really appreciate you coming out today, inviting me out, I should say, rather, and talking about the elections and making sure people understand what's going on as it relates to the reapportionment that's going on in the Capitol. It actually starts today. Today is the first day of a special session that the Georgia General Assembly is having to redraw the lines all over the state of Georgia. And for any of your viewers that may not know the process, that what happens is every 10 years, we do, about the census where there's a recount of all the people in the state. Well, they take one of the things that they do with that number is they redraw lines, your city council lines, your county commission, your state legislature, and more importantly, your congressional lines. So right now, today, the state legislature is in session in what's called a special session, where the only thing they're going to go in and do is redraw these lines for the state of Georgia. And it's going to have a tremendous impact on not just the state of Georgia, but Congress as a whole and the nation, because obviously whoever's in power is going to try to draw lines that meet the needs that they want. Meaning that right now we have 6 members of Congress. I would not be surprised that next Friday we have 5 Democratic members of Congress. The lines are going to be drawn again for the state house. There were quite a few close races in the state. I would suspect that some of those races will not be as close as they were, and the gains. And to be fair, it's something that whoever's in power always does. For us right now, it's just Republicans are in power. So they're going to draw lines that specifically help them and their cause.
When we did the program talking about, gerrymandering, and in particular, it was looking at lines in Chicago and in North Carolina, how those lines were drawn, and even when they got through drawing, they looked like animals. And so it's how they tie these lines together to get what they want in terms of for their particular party, so they can continue to control. And that's been a age-old question: is how do we get politics out of politics in terms of making sure that the process is fair and people get equal and fair representation, and not looking at this is a Democratic cluster, so we're going to draw lines so we can pull people in here. It's a Republican cluster, so we're going to draw them out of the Democratic cluster and put them in here, so that we can continue to control on the state level, and even, like you said, the county level and congressional level, because that don't play in the city races, just the county, the state. And this is for educational purposes too, for people to listen. It's just the county, the state, and the congressional seats that makes it very important in that. But it does play in city election, not in terms of Democrats or Republicans, is if I'm a city council person and we redrawing lines, guess what? And I know you're gonna run against me. I'm drawing
you out. Drawing you out.
I'm drawing you out. So that's it. That's what happens. And so Aaron, let's talk a little bit about, and then Shanan will turn it over to you so you guys some questions. Let's talk a little bit about the process. You say that they're today. They're actually in the chambers and just talking about how they're going to go about doing it, the process, or are they actually drawing the lines and how those lines will be drawn? Just explain that part.
So in theory, that's what they're doing. They're going in to draw the lines.
Okay.
But leadership has a tendency to have a map before they get there.
Okay.
They're showing everybody the map once they get there. They put some maps together. You have different, and sometimes you even have different factions within parties that have different agendas that come up with different maps, and it's about who can get their map passed. So I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, the lieutenant governor released a map saying this will be the map that we're looking at. But I also understand that the House had a different map that they're going to release during this time period. I haven't seen it, but that's my understanding. But one of the things you touched on was, I just want to give your viewers an idea of how crazy maps can be. If you remember, Senator Fort used to have a district that was right over here, actually. And this was his area, and it was kind of this area a little bit further south and a little bit more up into the city and over by the AUC, the schools over there. That was Senator Fort's district. At the last, and we can double check with Senator Fort, but I just happen to know this district. It goes from Claremont Road, just really skinny, all the way down the Old National Highway. Now you tell me, in theory, districts are supposed to have commonality. So in a district, in a House district, Senate district, things of that nature, there may be different neighborhoods, but it should be in a general common area. Think about it. Claremont Road, coming down through Buckhead, coming down through the city of Atlanta, little parts of East Atlanta, coming through here, and then booting down over the Old National Highway.
All the way to South Fulton.
Yeah, down into South Fulton, from north all the way down to south. But that was a map that was drawn. And if you look at, for instance, there's a congressional district that goes around the bottom of Atlanta. It picks up in Cobb County, goes into Douglas, a little bit of South Fulton, Clayton, and going on around. But those are the types of maps that they draw to keep people together. And the problem that we have is, these days, the people should be electing their officials, but their officials are trying to elect them. Exactly. They're cherry picking their voters. And you are right. They start today. Today is the first day. They should be there just a couple weeks. And what they're going to do is they'll have a few hearings, committee hearings. They'll go back and forth about which map they like. But they're not just voting on the House and Senate, state, and the congressional. They're also voting on local. So they will get a map from a local delegation or from like the county commission or something, and they will vote on those maps as well. So that's what takes so long, because quite frankly, if it was just House and Senate in the state and the House on the national level, it wouldn't take more than a week or so. But they literally have to go through and vote for different levels of government.
Will the school board be in this process at this time, or will it be later?
Everybody, all elected officials. So what will happen for the rest of this year, your current map will stay. And then next year, everybody, it might be slightly different. Some of them don't change very much. Some of them change tremendously. But next year, you'll see the new lines that have been drawn.
Shanan, I was going to let you say something about it. And you brought up an point. How is it if John Q. Public, who's watching this program today, can get involved or be able to influence how the maps are drawn? Like when we did the people from Chicago, they had a group of people that were upset because of the maps and how they were drawn. And they advocated against the maps being approved for their district. How can a group of citizens just take the old district that Senator Ford had when he was a senator, that if a group of citizens knew that map was being drawn like that, how could they have advocated to say, this is not a fair map? Mm-hmm. And is there an appeal process to change the map? Because when we did the show, they were talking about going to court and fighting against the map as that they were proposing. Is there a process? I'm just trying to give people information, or hopefully giving people information as to how to get involved early as opposed to get involved later.
And Aaron, as you think about that, because I had a similar question: what does the minority party, what type of a course should they have to be able to combat it in any way? So just jump on that in.
So the main thing is, now it could have been a horse and pony show, but one of the things that happened this year is that the leaders of the state legislature went around the state with maps, saying this is what we're looking at. That gave an opportunity for average citizens to come out and see what was going on and try to say, okay, no, we don't like that, we like this. But truly, the one fail-safe we used to have was anything that involved elections had to go to the Department of Justice formally. Obviously, there were parts of that was taken out, so they don't have to do that anymore. Yeah, the pre-clearance, they don't have to do that anymore. So that used to be our number one fail-safe, or for especially here in the state of Georgia and in the South. Right now, we don't have that. We still have the Department of Justice. You still can go to court. You can say, wait a minute, you can tell these maps are drawn ridiculously, and that these maps are not about the people. They're about bunching together, because you still can't bunch minorities together. And so that's one of the things that they try to steer clear of, is spreading it out just a little bit, so that, it's close, is like right up on the line, but they don't cross the line. So that's one of the unfortunate things that happens. But one of the things that we could do is encourage our members of Congress and encourage our senators to pass the For the People Act. There's voting reform in Washington right now on the House side and on the Senate side that they are trying to pass. Just the other day, the Senate was discussing it. It has not passed both chambers yet. But if we can get that bill passed, one of the things that it will do, it'll do some great things, but one of the things that it will do is take the politics out of redistricting. Some states right now, they have a third party group that comes in and they literally just draw maps.
Is that like ALEC?
Yeah.
Like that?
Mm-hmm. So they go in.
Whoa, stop right there. Stop right there. Don't throw a name out like Alex, and not tell the people who Alex is.
The American Legislative, Legislative.
It's commission, isn't it?
ALEC.
It's ALEC.
ALEC, American Legislative. Keep going.
You'll get it?
Listen,
Okay.
Funny, because I want people to know, because we're
What
giving
these groups
information.
are.
Because we throw out acronyms like that, people are like, well, what is that?
Obviously, we said it too, right?
Who is that? I mean, who is Alex?
Right. So yeah, Alex. So what it would do is create a nonpartisan third-party group whose sole purpose is to draw even maps. And they don't base the maps on, well, how many Republicans are needed and how many Democrats are needed or anything like that. They totally draw the maps based on the geographics of that state or city or area, just to reach the goal of having their congressional districts. Like right now, we have 14 in the state of Georgia. They don't look at, okay, we need to keep such and such, or we need to get rid of such and such. Because one of the things that majority do is they'll try to put all right, where does so-and-so live and where does so-and-so live, and put them in the districts together. As you remember what happened to Commissioner Darnell and Commissioner Edwards.
Right, absolutely.
They put them in the same districts.
Run against each
So they would have to end up running against each other. Now, obviously, well, in Congress, you don't technically have to live in your district. You just have to live in your state. So somebody could just not run in that district. But the goal is to make it hard for one of those two people to win, to make sure only one person wins. So that's one thing you can do. Obviously, talking to your legislators, going down to the Capitol during this process, making sure that they know that you are watching, because one of the things that I think a lot of elected officials do, and it's not if you're not there, they always have the fail-safe of, well, we didn't know, you didn't tell us. So if folks are going down to the Capitol while this process is going on, that will be helpful. But to encourage your members of Congress and your senators in Washington, D.C. to pass the voting rights legislation, that would be significant as well.
Yeah, and it's the American Legislative Exchange Council.
Council, okay.
Yeah. Bishop. So I actually want to go back to the pre-clearances and Section 405 Voter Rights Act, which they gutted in 2013.
I was going to say 12 or 13, somewhere in that neighborhood.
They gutted it. I really want our listeners and viewers to understand the importance of the scrutiny, the reason why we had to have that scrutiny, and why if not even more so, why it is absolutely necessary to have that level of scrutiny today at the federal level of the Department of Justice.
One of the reasons why I think it's absolutely necessary is because we have folks in majority that have a tendency to want to tinker with election laws every year. They figure out, okay, with this happened during the election, well, we need to change the law. And what the pre-clearance did is it made any changes that you were going to, in certain states, any changes you were going to make to elections law had to go to the Department of Justice, get pre-cleared to come back, and then you could make the changes. But you couldn't do it. But right now, as you see in November, after the election in November, I have to carry around a cheat sheet on all the changes that were made to the Georgia law as it relates to elections. And I'm on the board of elections, so I deal with elections every day. And I still have to carry a cheat sheet because they changed so much. It's so many little nuances that were changed that people know about, don't know about. It's certain things about elections I try to make sure people understand, so that when they go vote, they don't feel disenfranchised. They don't feel like their vote is being suppressed. It is a level of suppression. Don't get me wrong. But if you go in empowered with information, then you'll do a better, it won't be so overwhelming when you get there.
What type of challenges is the SB 202 law visiting upon the Fulton County elections process now?
Well, I think that some of the things, I do agree. Anytime, I'm old, I can tell you, a broken clock is right twice a day, right?
Yeah, it is.
There are a couple of things that SB 202 did that were very helpful, no question, because you got to put something in good to, cover up the bad. But there are so many different things that hurt people in Fulton County. Like, for instance, we had to do because of the law, we had to do a lot of precinct changes. But it was a combination. Like, some schools didn't want us there anymore. Some churches may not have wanted to deal with the politicizing of everything around them. Some buildings got sold and we just can't use it anymore. It was a myriad of reasons, so we had to do it. One of the things that people didn't know is that if you didn't go to your precinct on election day, you used to be able to just get I can't make it to the other place. I'll get a provisional ballot. Certain ones will count. They'll count it. Now, if you go to the wrong precinct before 5 o'clock, they won't count it. Let one good accident happen on Camp Creek Parkway when you're trying to go to your next precinct. That can be your whole 2 hours right there. So, just little things like that. The way asking for an absentee ballot, all the things that you have to do now. I don't know about y'all, but my in-laws are 80 plus years old. They understand how a phone and a scanner work, but having to scan their IDs, send it in, scan it again, all of that is outside of what they do. And it's hard. It makes it hard for a lot of people to be able to get the ballot and exercise their right to vote. So what we want to make sure is, we try to do everything we can to educate people. We at Fulton County, we have a whole voter education section, division in the elections that all they do is go around educating people about the elections. You may have known that we had mobile voting units, which were great because it gave us an opportunity not only to sit outside of polling locations to help, when there's ease of crowd, but we had times where one particular facility lost all power. All power was gone. It was no big deal. We pulled the mobile voting unit up. Everybody was able to just go to that. It had 8 machines on it. They could go on and vote on there, in and out, no problem. Now that's outlawed. We can only use a mobile voting unit if the governor calls a state of emergency. What's the likelihood the governor is going to call a state of emergency on election day? So, it's little things like that that have made it, and so many more now.
What's good about 202? Because we campaigned against 202 so bad we never.
So one of the
campaigned against it.
Oh man.
Oh, not you.
overall, I would too. So one of the things that we were having problems, especially here in Fulton County, and I've talked to elections officials across the state, they were having the same issue, but our volume. The one thing about Fulton County is you always hear, and I'm gonna get to your question. One of the things that you hear about Fulton County all the time are all the problems we have, but you got to look at the sheer volume that we have. I was just looking the other day. We had 171,000 people vote on election day. Cobb County had 50. We have 800,000 registered voters in Fulton County. 800,000. That's more than every other county. And there are some counties, like my home county, I'm from South Georgia. Our entire county is 40,000 people. We have 800,000 just registered voters. My county is 40,000 people. So for us, it's volume, and the rules are made for everybody and not really for Fulton County. So how you have to get from one place to another, how you have to get your ballots in, how quickly you have to get your ballots in. In the city of Atlanta, we had an election in the city of Atlanta on Tuesday. The polls close at, this is a bad one, but I'm gonna get to the good ones. The polls in the city of Atlanta close at 8 o'clock. The Secretary of State wants us to tell them how many ballots were cast in Fulton County by 10 o'clock. Counties outside of Fulton County didn't even do that, and they all closed at 7 o'clock. There were quite a few that closed at 7 that couldn't do it. We closed at 8 and have 3 times the volume. So it's little, and then we get penalized for it, and ridiculed in the paper for it. One good thing, this is a good bad thing. You used to have a time period of 3 weeks to get your absentee ballot by mail. One of the issues we were having is the last day to request your ballot was the Friday before the election, right? If we think about it logically, let's say at noon, I apply for my absentee ballot, I mail it in, we get it, we turn it around and we send it out on Friday. You might still not get your ballot until Monday. And then if you mail it on Monday, it might not show up till Tuesday. So the SB 202 moved it back to the Friday before. So that was a good thing because that gives people time to have their ballots mailed and, back and forth. The problem though is the start date stayed the same. They didn't move the start date back 1 week, to give you the same amount of time. It just went from here to here instead of from here to here. So that was good. There are a few technical things that are very helpful. Some things in there we were already doing, like you'll hear people saying, oh, now you have the option to vote on the weekends, on a Saturday and a Sunday. As you know, in Fulton County, we vote Saturday and Sunday before the election anyway. They just went from you can do it to you shall do it, one of those types of things. But there are a couple of technical things that help staff out. I can't give you 5 things that I think that they changed that makes it much easier to vote. But there are some things on the technical side that's helpful to staff when they do it.
And what you just said in terms of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm.
That's the argument that many people are making in terms of the Senate. You can't cookie cut it for every area. I heard the senator from Alaska say that what you're asking us to do, we only got, I'm gonna just throw out a number, 3,000 people in the whole state, and you asking us to do, you want to cut it that we follow the same guidelines as Georgia or as California, other states that have a greater population in terms of how we're going to do this thing. And so I think when we start looking at it, just like you just said, because you're actually dealing with it from the inside and you're seeing it from the inside, we're on the outside looking at it from the outside. But when you start listening to some of the debates and from some of the senators and some of the things they're saying, it doesn't make sense, because you're imposing something on me that is difficult for me because I don't have the volume, and then you're posing something on me that's different than those people who have less volume. I mean, your plan that you have is for people with less volume. It's not for people who have more volume. Your plan is for people who got more volume than people who got less volume. How do you see us cutting this thing down the road in terms of some final decision? And this is a Aaron Johnson opinion. I'm asking from you, not as an a board member, or just a John Q's public. How do you see us cutting this thing down the middle so we can move to get what is fair and what is right? And I'll give you my opinion for what is fair and what is right, so people will feel that this process of voting is fair, and people are given the time to vote. Like now, Fulton County itself used to give people time off to go vote. They don't do that anymore, right? To the person you just said, well, if you on Camp Creek Parkway and you got an accident out there, you stuck. You may not get to the poll. But people say, well, you got early voting now. Well, some people, they have other things. They can't go vote early for other reasons. I mean, I'm just saying is, how do you see we're coming to a place where nothing can ever be fair, but just where there is some reasonable sense of this is that elections are being held in a fair and equitable manner?
Well, I think you have to have the right people in office. Outside of Fulton County, I think we have a great elections board, but make sure you're a part of the elections board. So many people, they believe that you have to be an elected official to institute change. And I'll be honest, I ran for office. I found out, I found somebody mentioned to me, hey, I think you'll be good on the elections board. And then I started to learn more about the elections board and what it really does, and the direction that it sets and the standards that it sets. Like, we determine how many early voting locations there are, what time they're open, within reason, because they can actually be shorter. We work with the staff to assure that whatever advantages we can make for people to vote or have an easier time voting, we as a board vote to make that happen. So for your listeners, what they can do is be a part of the process. A lot of things happen in government because people don't show up. A lot of things happen because people say, well, I didn't know, I didn't have time, Somebody has to make time. I tell everybody, get a group of 10 people. Everybody don't have to do everything, but get a group of 10 people One person can help with zoning. One person can help with elections. One person can help with development. One person, and then y'all can switch it off. So it's not the same person all the time, but everybody is involved to a degree that helps their community, that helps their city, that helps their county, but they're not doing it all by themselves, because the number one excuse is I don't have time to do everything. And that's true. I don't have time to do everything, but I focus on elections and a little bit of zoning. I help with zoning, but that's it. I can't spend time doing everything else, and I understand that. So, but we have a group of 10. Everybody does something different. So
let me ask you something, and I want to bring it all the way down to a 3rd grade level.
Mm-hmm.
Some folks that just need to understand this. If slaves were allowed to vote, would there have been an institution of slavery?
Probably not.
Because they would have had a voice in whether or not they were going to become slaves or not.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't like the outcomes of what we have, the power to change that is by us going to the ballot box. We have all of this complaining going on.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the day, you ask folk, well, did you vote? Did you vote, or you registered to vote? Have you checked to make sure they haven't thrown you off the voter rolls, which is a whole nother question. That's a whole segment, I think.
Oh, yeah.
To look at that. But after we deal with all of this, the power of a democracy is met at the ballot box. And when the sons and daughters of slaves who died and cried and did all that they could do to get to the ballot box, when they got there, we began to see systemic change in our community. Somewhere along the line, we have decided that it's okay for a political class to decide our fates.
Mm-hmm.
And that's dangerous. That's dangerous. So what would you say to those folks that are on the fence about, well, if I vote, it's not going to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's no change. Well, you're right there. You're on the elections board. You're watching forensically what happens when folks vote and don't vote.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you say to Joe and John or Kwame and Camila that's out there with us today that would say, it don't make no difference whether I vote or not?
Mm-hmm. So I get obviously hit with that quite often. And people, I think a part of our problem is we like instantaneous change. There was a time like in the 50s and 60s where they understood, look, first we're going to get this seat, then we're going to get this seat, then we're going to get this seat. And once we get those seats, then we can make changes. They got those seats and changes started to be made. The one thing I tell people when they say my vote doesn't make a difference, if your vote did not make a difference, why are they trying so hard to keep you from voting?
Absolutely.
Why do they make it so hard for you to vote?
Absolutely.
Why do they convince you, the conversations convince you that the people that help you the most are not helping you? They know that as long as they can divide us and keep us divided and keep you not voting, if you're not voting, then they get what they want. Because they don't tell their people not to vote. They don't tell their people don't follow me, don't continue to do the things that we're needing you to do. They're encouraging their people to vote. And then telling other folks that may not be supportive of them, there's no real reason for you to vote. Look at you. Y'all been voting. Y'all had black, this is one of the things that kill me. Y'all have had black leadership since 1973. Ain't nothing changed. We still got poor people. Like, well, let's go back to 1973 and see how many in our community were poor. What percentage was poor? What percentage of professionals did we have? What percentage of leadership did we have? Did we have a black police chief that's keeping people from getting, did we have a public service commissioner or a public service watershed management director that's trying to help people keep their lights on and their water on? People don't look at things like that and say, oh, we do have progress. We have had change. And they just say, well, it hadn't changed since last week. Well, of course it hadn't changed since last week. Only thing changed, I got 2 more gray hairs since last week. Now that I got. But if you look at where we were in 1940 and where we went to in 1965 and then where we went to in 1985, you got to realize that there has been considerable change from where we were to where we are. Now, are we where we need to be?
No.
Or are even we where we want to be?
No.
No question. But if we don't keep moving, then all we're going to do is start sliding back. And what happens is when they tell you don't vote, or my vote doesn't count, or we got the same old people are there because the same people are voting. If you really want to see somebody move, get a new group of people to vote, because obviously the people who are voting like them. And if you don't like what they're doing, get a new group of people and y'all go vote them out.
We may have seen something like that on election day.
Exactly.
Past election. Well, listen, guys, I really enjoyed this conversation. You got a lot of information you can share, and you've shared a lot with us today, Aaron, and thank you so much for being a part of Straight Talk with us today. I want to bring you back again, my brother, because this information is what's needed, because we need to get Lottie, Dottie, and everybody voting and understanding the voting process. And as I said, I was going to give you my opinion, what we can do to straighten things out. I think you are ready to make the process fair. I think you just gave it to them. Vote. If that's the only way the process is going to be fair, is you have to vote. Register to vote and vote for dog catching. Vote for sewer maintenance person. Vote for everything that you have to vote for. And for those of you who are Christians, I'm a believer myself. I believe in the Word of God. And people say Christians and a believer, you got to be a believer to be a Christian. I don't believe in that either. But I am a believer, and I believe in voting. I believe in voting. I believe in voting, the process of voting. Why? As I said to you last week, when they chose the 12th apostle after the death of Judas, who betrayed Jesus, guess what? The 11 of them voted on who was going to take Judas' place. So voting is in the Bible. It's in the Bible. Look here, and they voted, as Shanan said last week, they voted to kill Jesus. Voting is in the Bible. They exercise their right to choose their leader, the predecessor of Judas. And they voted to kill our Lord and Savior. Yeah, voting is in the Bible. Yeah, the successor of Judas. Thank you. But voting is in the Bible. So listen, if you don't vote, don't register if you ain't gonna vote. But if you do register, guess what? Vote. And we thank you again, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, sir.
And thank you, Shanan. Every time I see you, Shanan, we'll leave that alone. Hey, thank you again. Hope you enjoyed this segment of Straight Talk.
Another show? More Street Talk.
Hey, but listen, keep your eyes and ears open on those lines, because, and we didn't talk about this, they do change your voting precinct too. So you need to make sure you go to the place you're supposed to go to.
And kick you off the rolls. That's a whole nother subject.
That's a whole other subject. Hey, don't forget, stay tuned to what we call Straight Talk with yours to the great fan, the preacher man, and Shanan E. Jones. And thank you so much, Aaron, for being a guest again.
Thank you.
Bless you. Well, we thank you so much for watching today. Straight Talk.
Great show.
Great show.
Great show.
Well, Shanan, they say I don't let you talk enough, so I'm gonna let you say something. You close us out. How about that?
Oh, man, I just
Shanan.
I got so much that I do want to say. Listen, it was a great show tonight. And I tell you, I always look forward to another edition of Straight Talk. We hope that you certainly learned something. We want you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's right there. Go on and subscribe and tell other people that there is a news source in your community that brings it all the way down to your level. It brings it to your level. In other words, it's like you're talking to your own neighbors. Straight Talk. So please subscribe to us and stay with us. And if you want to be a guest on, just go ahead and send us an email at fan922@comcast.net. Again, that's fan922@comcast.net. Or you can give us a call at 403-080795. Again, 403-080795. We want to get you on the show, and we want to make sure that we're dealing with the issues that you're concerned about. So if you got some things that you think that the Straight Talk listeners and viewers need to hear, you get at us, and we'll get back to you. Thank you very much, and until next time, this ain't been nothing
But what's Straight Talk?
Want to be a guest on Straight Talk? Email Greg Fann at FANN922@comcast.net or call 404-308-0795. Join us again for another episode of Straight Talk with Shanan Jones and Greg Fann, the Preacher Man.